All right, today we're jumping into a pretty provocative idea from a new white paper. It argues that America is facing a crisis of truth. The whole idea is that our collective sense of reality has become, well, fractured. And the only way to fix it is to reclaim what the paper calls our epistemic spine. So let's break down exactly what that means. So here's our roadmap. We're going to start by digging into this so-called crisis of truth. Then we'll get into the big philosophical battle at the heart of it all, realism versus relativism. From there, we'll look at the two historical thinkers the paper really champions, John Locke and Thomas Reid, before we see how their ideas get combined into this framework the paper calls the original American Epistemology.
Okay, Section 1, a crisis of truth. So what on earth does the paper mean when it says our relationship with truth itself is in crisis?
I mean, you've probably felt this, right? The paper argues this exact feeling is a major symptom of a post-truth era, where my truth starts to replace the search for the truth. And according to the author, this isn't just about our social media feeds. Nope. It's a sign of a much deeper, more fundamental problem in the very way we think. This brings us to the paper's core metaphor, our epistemic spine. You can think of it as our shared collective commitment to the idea of objective truth. The author's claim is that this spine is currently fractured and it's leaving us in a state of, intellectual and even civic paralysis.
So what's the proposed treatment for this fractured spine? It's a return to a philosophy called realism. At its core, it's actually a pretty simple but profound idea. There's a real world out there, separate from our minds, and truth is just when our beliefs correctly match up with that reality. The Greek philosopher Aristotle said it best a long, long time ago. To say of what is that it is, and of what is not that it is not, is true. It's that basic. The paper argues that getting back to this commitment to facts is the only way forward.
Okay, Section 2. Realism versus relativism. The paper frames this whole crisis as a big philosophical showdown between two completely opposite worldviews. Realism, which we just covered, and its main rival, relativism.
So here's the core disagreement in a nutshell. Realism says truth is discovered. It's out there, waiting for us to find it, kind of like a scientist discovering a new planet. But relativism, which you'll also hear called social constructivism, argues something totally different. It says truth is constructed, that it's really just a product of our culture, our power structures, or our personal point of view, not some objective reality.
The paper uses this really famous line from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche to kind of sum up the whole idea of relativism. And from there, the author asks a pretty critical question. If there are no facts, if it's all just interpretation, well, how can a society actually function? How do we debate anything, pass laws, or even agree on basic science?
So if relativism is the problem, what's the cure? The paper says we need to get back to our philosophical roots, and it builds the solution on two major intellectual pillars. The first one is the English philosopher John Locke.
But before we dive deep into Locke, it's helpful to see where he fits in. This timeline basically shows the realist heritage the paper is drawing from. It starts way back with Aristotle's simple definition of truth. Then it jumps forward to 1689 when John Locke bases all knowledge and experience. Just a few decades after that, in 1764, you get Thomas Reid defending common sense. The paper's argument is that its call to action today is a direct appeal to this whole intellectual family tree.
Locke's big idea was that our minds start out as a blank slate. All of our knowledge comes from experience, from seeing, hearing, and touching the world around us. This is pure realism. It just assumes there's a real, external world out there that our ideas can represent. For Locke, knowledge isn't just something we invent in our heads. It's built from our real interactions with an objective reality. Now, Locke didn't stop with just reality. He took this realism and pushed it right into politics and ethics. He argued that our most basic rights, life, liberty, property, aren't just things people agreed on. Nope, he said they're grounded in natural law, an objective moral order that's as real as the laws of gravity. This was a radical idea, and it became a huge philosophical backbone for the American Declaration of Independence. The second pillar of the source's argument is another philosopher. He might be less famous today, but he was massively influential in early America, the Scottish thinker Thomas Reid. Reid came up with his common sense philosophy to fight back against the skeptics who were questioning if we could know anything for sure. His argument was pretty simple. Some truths are just self-evident. You don't need some complex proof that the world outside your head exists or that your memory of what happened 5 seconds ago is real. Reid called these first principles, the foundational beliefs that, he argued, anchor all of us to a shared reality.
And this is where Reid's idea becomes a really powerful tool for today. His philosophy gives us permission to trust our own senses and to push back against arguments that are, as the paper puts it, absurd to deny. It's basically presented as an antidote to the kind of extreme skepticism that can make us doubt what's right in front of our faces.
Section 5. Restoring American Epistemology. So, how do we combine the ideas of Locke and Reid to build a solution for the challenges we face today?
The paper basically combines them into a formula it calls the Original American Epistemology, or OAE for short. The idea here is that Locke and Reid aren't two separate thinkers, but really two sides of the same coin. They each provide a different but complementary piece of one single, powerful framework.
So this OAE is a worldview that's built on all these pillars. You get empirical realism and natural law from Locke, and then you get common sense and a basic confidence in our own reason from Reid. The paper argues that when you put all of that together, you create a culture where truth is something we can all actually pursue together, through evidence and shared understanding.
And this is really the paper's core claim. It argues that this framework, this OAE, isn't just some dusty historical curiosity. No, it's the fundamental operating system for a free society. And, the source warns, when you start messing with that operating system, say by replacing realism with relativism, the whole structure starts to crash.
And so, we're left with a core question this paper really forces us to confront. The authors argue forcefully that the answer is yes, that without a shared commitment to objective truth, a free society just can't function. They claim that realism, common sense, and natural law aren't just old ideas, but the very spine holding the whole American experiment upright. It's a really bold claim, and it definitely leaves us with a lot to think about. Thanks for joining me for this one.